Hello, everybody. I'm Nancy Martland. I think I've met all of you, and I'd like to welcome you here this evening to meet our I'd like to welcome you to meet our next governor, Cinde Warmington. I first met Cinde over the telephone the first time she ran for executive council. She cold called me from, I don't even know where you live, Cinde, but it wasn't my district, and I thought, why is she calling me? But after like 5 minutes on the phone, talking to Cinde, finding out she's a person who listens to what you have to say and wants to know what you have to say, I was completely sold. I've admired her ever since. And I think I'd just like to call attention to a couple issues that I know Cinde stands up on. One is of special importance to us in this area, which is LGBTQ issues. Cinde is a stalwart in that area. She made a special trip to come and view the murals in Littleton, for example, to show her support. And another is abortion rights. So I admire Cinde. I've watched her stand up to the 4 other guys and one woman on the executive council. She's fearless. She'll stand up for us, and I think we can really depend on her. So take it away, Cinde.
On the executive council for a while, Nancy, I went to Nancy's home for an event, and I spoke, and she gave me a rock that's painted that says, "She persisted." And I keep it with me to remind me to persist. All right, can everyone hear me? Sue Ford, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, Carl Marley, can you hear me? All right, everybody? Okay, good. So I am Cinde Warmington. I am the executive counselor for this district, District 2, and I am now candidate for governor. I do want to talk just a little bit about some of the things particular to the North Country that I have worked on the council. So we'll talk about the reproductive rights and schools and whatnot, but specific to this area, broadband. It has been, I'm like a dog with a bone on broadband, because I know that if we don't have broadband in our communities, then that undermines our ability for communities to thrive economically. It undermines the ability of people to get education remotely, to access healthcare services, and it will leave our communities behind. And the money that we have right now, thanks to the Biden administration, is once in a lifetime money. And if we don't use this money to get to every last mile, then it will never be economically viable to do that. So I have been on this day in, day out, and I think we're doing a really good job of it. We made sure we got into the market early, and we're able to start buying locations at about $2,000 per location, whereas now it's about $6,000 because all the states are competing for the same scarce resources. So I'm happy with where we are, and I think we are going to get to every single location. Another issue here, in particular in the North Country, is emergency medical services. And I really have been working closely with Senator Prentice on this. She is a champion on emergency medical services. But we saw that we're seeing the need here. We saw how the EMS providers here are really struggling, and we worked together to make sure we increase that funding. We got a huge increase in funding. Not only the Medicare rate, the Medicaid rates went all the way up to Medicare. Now, Joe knows how much that means. That's a lot. And so we got that funding, and we brought all of the services up to that level, and increased the funding, and got an additional boost for the provider that serves the Glencliff home as well, to make sure we were providing services there. And I am continuing to work on that issue, because I know how desperate it is. When I was at Littleton Hospital, and the CEO was saying to me, we have people who are waiting sometimes 12 hours who need to be transferred to a more acute level of care. That's just plain dangerous, and we need to make sure that we are addressing emergency medical services. And then there are more, but I'm only going to talk about these 3 local issues. Is Dalton, the landfill. Thank you for John Swan and everyone who has brought me up here to bring me up to speed on the issue when I took over this district. And I am very, very concerned about the placement of a landfill in Dalton where we do not have PFAS. And one of the things that we've learned on the Executive Council is we have PFAS all over the place now in our state. And we don't have it at Forest Lake, and we don't have it in those surrounding private wells. And to put a source of PFAS right there in a pristine area of our state, it makes no sense. We are not even beginning to talk about the number of trucks that will drive in and out of that facility every day, the roads that they're going to travel, the communities that they're going to go through. Not only bringing the trash, but I had to learn all about this. When it rains on a landfill, all those drippings, whatnot, and the decomposition of trash results in what they call leachate. And that leachate drops into a liner and gets pumped out every single day into trucks, which they take those trucks, they drive them down the road, and guess what they do with those leachate-full trucks? They put them in our drinking water, like in Merrimack County. They don't have any way of really filtering it out. They dilute it and they send it back into the drinking supply. Or they put it in a sludge pit, dry it out, scoop it up every once in a while, and do what with it? Bring it back to your landfill. Bring it back to your landfill and let it do it all over again. So this is a real issue that I am on this. I am working on this with DES. I am working on this with Representative Karen Ebel, and we are really focused on these issues that are specific to you all here in the North Country. And if there are other issues, please ask about them in the question and answer period. And so let me just say that we are incredibly fortunate, and especially in the North Country, to live in this beautiful, beautiful state of ours. But we really have real challenges that have gone unaddressed, neglected really, for way too long. And we have things that are really impeding the ability of people to thrive in our communities. You know, I think that the essence of our democracy is that everyone, no matter how humble their beginnings, has the opportunity to work hard, get a good education, and build a better life for themselves and their families. And that's my story, and I bet it's a story that sounds familiar to many of you. That when my parents got married, they were 20 and 23 years old. My dad worked at a shipyard. My mom waited tables to make ends meet. They had 4 kids in 5 years. Sorry. Boy, my mom would really be happy with that. 4 kids in 5 years. But they could still afford to put a roof over our heads, buy a little house, feed us, clothe us. I got a great public school education, and I got to be the first person in my family to ever go to college. And yet what I see now is that dream, that American dream, is slipped away from way too many Granite Staters. And what is it that is impeding the ability to thrive in our communities? Well, skyrocketing costs, right? Housing is the primary source of those skyrocketing costs right now. We are 60,000 units behind in our state, 60,000 units. And you know, I asked this question, this is a pretty simple question. Who is it in state government that is responsible and accountable for how many housing units we have? Guess how many people there are in state government that are accountable? Nobody. There is no one in state government responsible for that. So this is how you end up 60,000 units behind, right? It's a problem we haven't paid attention to, and we absolutely have to prioritize it. It is what is underneath our homelessness crisis. That is what is underneath our workforce shortage. This is what is underneath the fact that our young people can't afford to stay here and raise their own families. The other thing, reproductive freedom. For women, freedom starts with being able to make our own reproductive health care decisions. We don't need Kelly Ayotte or Governor Sununu in the exam room with us. Women can be trusted to make their own reproductive health care decisions. We absolutely have to do away with this dangerous abortion ban and replace it with access to safe and legal abortion in our state. I have been the leading voice in the State House on this issue for years now. I have gone toe-to-toe with Sununu on his abortion ban, calling it out for the danger that it actually presents to women in our state. When you put doctors in a position where they're not sure whether they can render the medical care that their patient needs, they have to second guess, they have to consult with their lawyers before they render care. That is dangerous. It is dangerous to women and healthy women and healthy babies. It is also what is undermining our maternal fetal health care system, because guess what? No surprise. Doctors don't want to work someplace where their liberty or their license is at risk if they just are rendering the health care that their patients need. We need to do away with this abortion ban, and we will. Public schools. All the things I fight on the council. Public schools. Frank Edelblut needs to go. Dismantling our public schools every single day, every day. He is dismantling them. How is he doing it? Well, he got his voucher program through, right? So he is siphoning off money, taking money, taxpayer dollars, public dollars, and giving them to private organizations, private and religious schools, for people who had already made the decision to send their kids to private school. We are just subsidizing that decision. And it looks like to the tune of about $66 million this year. This is coming right out of our schools. And then what happens as a result of that is that local communities end up having to raise their taxes because they're getting less funding. And then as a result of that, his plan is that communities would finally say, we can't afford public school. It is an absolute intentional effort because they do not believe in public schools. And what I have to say about that is that Frank Edelblut's term is up 2 months after I take office. So many more issues, the environment, our gun violence, LGBTQ issues. My daughter and her wife have my 2 beautiful grandchildren, and it is very personal. It is visceral to me that there are people who would like to invalidate their marriage, who think it's okay to discriminate against my grandchildren. We're not going to have that, not in our state, and certainly we are going to make sure that we protect the rights of every person to love who they love and be who they are. Now you have a choice in this election, and most of you are sitting there saying, why you? Why you? Well, let me start with my experience is on the executive council. I am actually in the executive branch, where the job of governor is. We see everything that comes through the executive branch on the governor's side. We have to approve it all. I live it, breathe it, and work it at every meeting. I know how things work in the State House. I work with the legislature. I work with the governor. I work with the executive council. The hallmark of my time on the executive council has been that I have learned how to lead from a minority of 1. Some people call it Warmington's majority of 1. But honestly, that leadership comes from knowing how to stand my ground, and knowing how to fight, and knowing when to fight, and when to stand our ground, but also knowing how to find the common ground when we can. There are so many things that we can work together on that are not, they don't have to be political. That's one thing. Another is just learning what it is that they know and what what I know, and making sure that they have come to respect my abilities. I had 40 years of healthcare experience before I came to the Executive Council. 20 in hospitals. I started in the lab at Lakes Region General Hospital. I spent 20 years in hospitals. I spent 20 years then as a healthcare attorney. I know healthcare, and they've come to respect that. But perhaps the piece of my experience that's most relevant is that I represent all of you. And I represent 81 cities and towns in this district. And any person, city or town or business, can call me up and say, I have a problem with some agency in state government. And I can pick up the phone and call the commissioner of that agency, and they will answer the phone. Do you know why they'll answer the phone? Because we appoint them. And we reappoint them. And they come before us every 2 weeks with their contract. So if they don't pick up the phone when I call them, then I'm going to ask them at a public meeting, and that is not much fun. So we have a great relationship. What they have learned from me over the years is they can trust me. They can trust me to never politicize their issue. They can trust me to never ambush them at a council meeting. I'm not scoring political points off of them. I'm going to roll up my sleeves and get to work. So you have all of these commissioners. Why is this relevant? Because when we elect a governor, you don't get just to replace all your commissioners. We have to live with these Sununu appointees until their terms are up and we can replace them. So they could be working with me, they could be working against me. And they've been working with me for years. I am also, without question, the candidate who has gone toe-to-toe with Governor Sununu for years on end. You see that on the nightly news. He recognizes it. He was asked on the radio, what do you think about this Democratic primary? He said, Warmington will be formidable. He knows from personal experience. My husband was asked, why do you think he said that about you? And he said, because every once in a while, the truth just slips out of that man's mouth. In good humor. But let me just say this. You know, whoever is going to win this race is going to have to get on the debate stage with Kelly Ayotte, a trained attorney, a trained debater, and is going to have to go toe-to-toe with her. And I think I am the person who can do that, and I certainly have shown that over the years. Yes. The polling that we have in this race, a couple of really key data points. UNH does a poll on favorability and unfavorability. Nobody who starts this race with a negative favorability has ever gone on to be governor for as long as they've been tracking that. I am the only person in this race that starts with a positive favorability rating. And all of the others in the race have historically high negatives, which is a very excellent predictor of success. We just did our own polling. It confirmed that people respond very positively to the positive message that I'm bringing, that I am a fighter, that I will fight for their values. And what we found in that polling is that once introduced to the voters, I will win this race. I am the strongest person to win this race and beat Kelly Ayotte. So, and we have to beat her. We have to beat her. You know, she has voted for a national abortion ban. She is trying to whitewash this now, but she has voted for a national abortion ban. She helped Trump to put a Supreme Court justice on the court to overturn Roe v. Wade. She celebrated the fall of Roe v. Wade. She even helped sponsor legislation that would restrict access to in vitro fertilization. She is truly, truly extreme. She would continue Frank Edelbluth's voucher plan. She would continue the dependence we see on fossil fuels and the complete ignoring of climate change. She would continue all of the things that we know must change if we're going to move our state forward. So we have a real choice in this election. We can choose right now to live in a state where we have the right to vote, really important, that we can love who we love and be who we are, where we can make our own reproductive health care decisions. We can live in a state where teachers are allowed to teach the truth and students can learn, where we can drink clean water and breathe clean air. We can live in a state where every single family, like mine, can put a roof over their kids' heads and feed them and clothe them and give them a great education and retire with dignity, and it is not too much to ask. I hope you'll join me on the journey. Thank you. I'm going to take some questions, but someone's going to keep me on a clock because Rusty Talbot, where are you? Rusty is going to speak after me, and we want to make sure you all hear from Rusty because he's going to be your next senator. So, happy to take questions. Questions are the best part. Yes.
Cindy, I don't see any reporters here, so I will ask this question. I come from the affordable housing industry, and my question to you, over the years I've learned that New Hampshire doesn't have an expense problem. We really know how to live within our means. Our issue is revenue. I think that the current governor has been blessed by all of the federal money that has come into the state. And I personally am of the opinion the reason why he's not running now is because he knows all that money's going to go away. So if and when you come in and take his place, what are some of the thoughts that you have about bringing in some more revenue and protecting some of the programs that we've been able to start with some of this federal money that we never would have had it not been for COVID?
Yes. So first I want to say that I will oppose any broad-based tax, any income tax or sales tax. And I want you to think about when I said before that I am going to see my decisions through the lens of that working family. That family that needs to be able to put a roof over their heads and feed their kids. All of our decisions need to be seen through that lens. And those taxes, who pays income taxes? Working people. I will not put a bigger burden on our working people. I simply will not do that. We are running surpluses right now. You mentioned federal money. One of the flaws in this administration is they leave way too much money on the table. They often don't take federal money. We need to be better at our job there in making sure we identify and take the federal money that's available. The first thing we're going to do is take back the $66 million that Frank Edelblut is siphoning out of our system, right? And then we are going to build a responsible budget from the ground up. Anybody here, Sue Ford here, were you here in 2018? We built a responsible budget in 2018, that legislature did, from the ground up, that serves the needs of the people of our state. We can do that and we will. And I just want to say this. I know this is presumptuous of me because I haven't been elected yet, but if I wait until I'm elected to get busy on the next biennium's budget, then it will be too late. By the time I've got my hand on the Bible, then the cake will already be baked because the budgeting process starts now. It starts all this time right now. So I have already, I said presumptuous, but I have already been meeting with House and Senate leadership and Ways and Means on both the revenue side and the expense side to go over the budgeting, to talk about what the priorities are going to look like in our next administration so that we can pivot quickly after the election and make sure I don't have to live with a budget that is based on Sununu's values. So already to work on that, and you know we are blessed with surpluses right now, and we expect we will continue to have a strong economy and have those surpluses, and I believe we can build a strong and responsible budget for our state. Thank you.
So to follow up with that, the interest and dividends tax went down 4% last year, and it's 3% this year. That's scheduled to disappear. I consider that Sununu's calling card for his national ambitions. He doesn't want to have to go against the Texas and Florida governors and say we have a income tax here at all. Do you think it's realistic for that to disappear?
It's already almost essentially has disappeared, and we're still running surpluses. And again, we're gonna build a budget, and we're already doing it from the ground up. A responsible budget based on our priorities. We've done it before. We'll do it again, and that's how we're gonna make this work. So. Who else? Any issue? Any question? Not too hard. Yes.
I am on a list that gets repeated notices from your opponent down in Manchester. And I am curious how we're going to make certain that you succeed rather than she as the alternative.
Yes. All right, so the question for all of you is how am I going to win this primary, basically. And you've already heard I have the experience, and I have statewide experience. I've represented 8 cities and towns in 8 out of our 10 counties. I don't have experience in just one area of the state, but statewide, I have that knowledge of the state house. But I'll also say this: we are going to win this race if we keep the fight on abortion, public schools, and the skyrocketing costs that are facing working families. If we keep the fight there, we win. And we have to be talking about these issues every single day. We cannot get pulled off into other issues. Where the Republicans would like this race to go, and they have already said they would like to run against my primary opponent, is they would like to drag this over. My primary opponent is running on her record in Manchester. They would like to run on her record in Manchester. They would like this fight to be about homelessness, drugs, and crime in Manchester. And if we go there, then we're not talking about the things we have to talk about if we're going to win. So that is how we're going to win this race, by continuing every single day to talk about the things that matter to everyone. And I will tell you, no matter where you go, no matter what party, no matter how many disagreements we have, absolutely everyone wants to feed their kids and put a roof over their heads and give them a great education. And we're going to keep talking to those people. So, thank you for the question. And all the way in the back.
Thank you, Cindy, for coming. Thank you, Martins, for hosting this. And as a grandparent of children in the Lafayette School and in the Profile School who march and raise placards and are very involved and cannot wait to vote, how are you reaching out to the ones who are in college? Not that we're not all young at heart, but the younger.
I want to tell you the particular challenge with the primary is that the college kids are either not back or not quite back, right? But we are reaching out to them and having dialogues with all the college Dems, the high school Dems, young Dems, and continuing that conversation all across our state. And focusing on the things that really matter, right, to young people. The cost of, for a lot of people, higher education skyrocketing. I mean, in our state, it's terrible. We are the worst in the country on this issue. It's cheaper to go and pay out-of-state tuition in some places than it is to have our in-state tuition. Our students graduate with the highest student debt. We have to address the issues, again, of housing and of childcare and of broadband. They're not going to live anywhere where there's no broadband or cell service. We have to listen to young people and address the issues that are most important to them. And I think listening is, my mom used to say 2 ears, 1 mouth. You should listen twice as much as you're talking. I could probably take a lesson from that right now. But that's how we're going to do it. Hear and respond, to our young people. I've got 2. Yes, let me take yours first.
David Van Houten from Bethlehem. What is your vision for bringing more clean energy to New Hampshire?
Yes, thank you. You may or may not know that the governor is actually hostile towards renewable energy. He particularly hates solar. I don't know why, and has blocked all sorts of legislation that would help us to increase the availability, the use of renewable energy sources, all of them. And he has also intentionally blocked and undermined energy efficiency efforts. Now, that is a head scratcher. No one can really understand why anyone would be against energy efficiency, but he honestly doesn't believe that it is a good investment. It is. And so as a result of that, what we have is a public utilities commissioner that doesn't believe in climate change, a commissioner of energy that believes the climate is changing, but doesn't believe government has any role in addressing it. So we can start there. We need a commissioner of energy that believes in climate change. We need a climate action plan, and we need an energy plan in our state. We don't have one. We have this total dependence on fossil fuels. And we just really need to look at the beautiful, bright, green future that is in front of us, including the beautiful, bright, green economy, those jobs that other states are happy to take, and invest them there. And that is what we're going to do. We have all sorts of more specific things to talk about in terms of how you actually do that. But in general, let's invest in clean and renewable energy sources all across our state and stop this dependence on fossil fuels. It's just inexplicable. So, Sue.
Cindy, I was just going to throw in, since I've been involved with the Democratic Party, they have started a Young Dems group. They've started a high school group. They've started college groups. They are working hard to get the kids involved with that, and I need to compliment Littleton and how they pulled it together for the last election, and they did a phenomenal job. If any of you know people that should be involved in the Young Dems or send me an email. I'll send you the contact information because they are wonderful people to work with. The college people, the high school people, it gives me great hope.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Sue Ford, for everything you've done for our state. I want to make sure we have time for Rusty, and so I want to say now, Carl and Nancy, thank you. Thank you so much for doing this. Thank you. And can we have a round of applause for Michelle? This is her hotel I will be around to answer more questions. I really love questions. But I really want you all to hear from Rusty. So thank you all. Thanks.
Thank you so much.
I'm not going anywhere.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, this is Cindy's show. This is Cindy's night. So thank you, Cindy, so much for giving me a couple of minutes to introduce myself to all of you. I think I know quite a few of you, but for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rusty Talbot, and I am running for the 1st District Senate seat in New Hampshire here. I care really deeply about the North Country, and I'm one of the strongest evangelists, I think, around of coming here and spending time here and just loving all of the amazing resources and people that we have up here. And I think that I want to run a campaign and be a senator who focuses on the issues that actually help the lives of people who live here in the North Country. I have no interest in focusing on national issues which divide us and which cause all sorts of issues. Instead, I really do want to focus on local issues and focus on those things which matter. And that, honestly, as Cindy was talking about, there are an awful lot of those challenges which we can get some bipartisan agreement on and ways that we can move forward to help with the things that we all recognize are really important, many of which Cindy has been talking about tonight. To get to know me a bit better, I think it's useful to recognize that you can tell an awful lot about someone and what they care about by how they spend their time. So let me talk a little bit about how I spend my time. I own the North Country Climbing Center. It's an indoor rock climbing gym with a guiding component to it as well, where we take people out to rock climb and ice climb in these amazing mountains here. The amazing world-class climbing here is something which has been the strongest force drawing me to this region. And one thing which really amazed me about 10 years ago was that while climbing on Cannon Cliff, climbing at Rumney, climbing at all these other areas around here is truly world-class. And actually there's people who come from Europe to climb at Rumney. Folks drive up from Washington, D.C. or down from Montreal or up from Boston or any of these other places to climb on Cannon Cliff. As of about 10 years ago, I almost never saw locals climbing on our local crags. And to me, that made me realize that was like, imagine someone growing up and living in Aspen or Vail and never really even considering going skiing. That's how it feels to me. And I felt, look, what is missing here is an entry point so folks can learn the skills and learn the equipment, get to use the equipment that they would need to be able to go outside. And the thing that's missing there is an indoor climbing gym. And so it was because of that that I built the North Country Climbing Center. It's been open for about 10 years now. And my vision was to not only have a place where people can learn these specific skills, which can then translate to the outside, but to really be sort of a third place. You know, not home, not work, but that place where you go and you feel comfortable and you can be you and you can improve and where everyone knows your name, and if they don't, you can ask them and then they'll get to know your name, right? And 10 years later, something I'm super proud of and very impressed with is that the more I'm seeing, there's people who have never climbed before, who now climb multiple times a week at the climbing gym. They're learning to get outside and enjoy this amazing resource here. So really, I view that as something that's a mission-driven business that is all about building this community of climbing and outdoor recreation in general, and adoring the environment that we're in. But I'm much more than just a climbing business owner. That's not how I spend my time. I believe that a thriving arts scene is really critical to a thriving community. And so I spend a lot of time working with the Colonial Theater in Bethlehem, and currently I'm the president of that board, and I'm super impressed with them. Many of you, I'm sure, all go to the Colonial and love the Colonial as much as I do. We see all sorts of acts, live acts, and movies that otherwise would never be seen in a rural area, right? That's one of those great things. I believe strongly that neighbors should help neighbors, so I'm a volunteer firefighter. I'm on the Sugar Hill Fire Department, and that's one of those things that, once again, just because I think that we should be able to help each other to the extent that we can, that's one of those activities that I like to do. Similarly, I think that spending time in the mountains and recreating and hiking is something which is rejuvenating and wonderful for people. I think it also helps us recognize how an amazing resource this is, and people should feel comfortable and safe to be able to go do that and recognize that if they slip or fall or have an accident, someone's going to be there to get them. And so that's why I'm on the PEMI Search and Rescue team, and I'm now the captain of that team. So I spend an awful lot of time hiking up in the mountains and helping carrying people off who had a bad day. I also believe that students should be able to achieve their potential and make it into higher ed and be able to afford that. And so, again, trying to think of some way that I can help with that. I'm part of the Littleton Rotary Club, and so actually 2 weeks from tomorrow night, we're having our annual fundraiser over at Iron Furnace Brewery. I recommend folks come to that. But I'm really involved with the Rotary Club and the Scholarship Fund, which last year we managed to fundraise almost $40,000 to give out to local students within our service area at the 6 different high schools that serve this. So again, all of these are just examples of someone I believe, even though I have never before run for office, I believe that I've spent an awful lot of time working for this community and working to improve the lives of the people who live here and the people who come and visit here. I also think that outdoor recreation is really central to the future economy, the current and future economy of the entire North Country. And that's all the way from the Canadian border all the way down to Rumney, which is actually Rumney, as far south as it is part of District 1. I believe that that is whether you're talking about rock climbing, ice climbing, skiing, any of those things, motorized recreation, that's something which, especially north of us, is a major economic driver. There's an awful lot to be said for the recreation economy, and as a small business owner, I know an awful lot about that and have been very involved with that. So I hope I have your votes, and I am looking forward to hearing from you because I want to learn about issues more deeply, and I want to talk to you all individually as well. So anyway, thank you very much for the time to talk tonight, and answer them.
I have a question.
Please.
Would you comment on your reach into COAS? Because COAS is something we have to think about in this district, and I have the impression that you have a good shot in COAS, that you have connections and contacts there that will help you in this race.
Yeah, so there's several elements to that. I think probably the best contacts that I have are both from the Leadership New Hampshire program, which I was part of back in 2019, and actually there's a number of folks spread out throughout the whole state, probably the best network that I've developed throughout the state, including a bunch of folks up in Coas County who I'm connected to through that. And those have been a number of my first conversations about wading into this, or with folks with that. Also, in terms of, there was a UNH program that I did for growing my business, which included a bunch of other entrepreneurs up in Coas, whether you're talking about up in Colebrook, over in Gorham, in various different areas that have started new businesses, some of which have been blowing up lately really well, which I'm pretty excited about for them. And so I've got business contacts around as well. The third area is with sort of Granite Outdoor Alliance and the outdoor recreation industry in general, where I definitely have some contacts throughout. But that being said, where I do think I have a good foundation for that, I'm in the process of meeting more and more folks up there throughout the district, but especially up in the north, because I don't live over there. And as we all know, the North Country is absolutely not a monolith. One thing I find so fascinating, talking to folks who live, in the deep south, somewhere south of exit 32, they often talk about this place that is the North Country as if it is a single entity with people who are all of a similar mindset. And as we all know, you go from one town to the next town, and there's radical differences, right? I mean, people just have different life experiences. The economy is different. The sources of jobs are radically different. So anyway, I have a lot to learn, but I do have a good foundation with it. Yeah.
Earlier, Cindy spoke about the Dalton landfill, and I assume that you have been following the efforts of the last 5 years to prevent that from occurring. Could you speak about what you know about the plans and how you might interact with DES and work with other senators to prevent that from occurring?
That is a very precise question, and one which I have to just basically say that I do not know how I would interact with DES. That's not the type of interaction that I have had to date. However, in terms of interacting with other legislators and other folks involved in this, I would want to basically point out what I think all of us feel, which is imagine the importance of the natural resources to the economy and to the area in particular. Talk about why is there a need, understand what the need is relative to the use. Honestly, I'm against it. I don't think that there's an argument to be made for why it should be there. I think that, as John and others have talked about, and Cindy knows way more about this than many of us in here, I'm sure, that there's lots of ways to meet the needs of trash without having something which abuts the first state park in the state, and without tackling that kind of thing. It just seems like a bad idea. Fundamental. Yes, Sue.
John, I will say, that Rusty, I think people ought to check with John because we did a fine job in the legislature today. Things passed in the House that we needed to have passed. And I would encourage anyone in this area that knows somebody up in COAS, join us. Introduce Rusty. We need to make sure that we have a conscientious, caring senator to represent us in District 1. So if you have anyone you can connect him to with, go for it.
And to represent all of us.
All of us, yes, represent all of us. And if you lived in Littleton, you know what that means.
And actually, just sort of to follow up on that, one of the things that I've been thinking about a lot recently is how, you know, one of the big differences between living in a city or a populated area and living out here in smaller communities is that if you live in a city, it is very, very easy to only be surrounded by the echo chamber of the people who you agree with and who agree with you and who share your background and education and values and all these things. You're online, you can make sure that that bubble stays put, and in real life, traveling around, you can live in that bubble and only interact with those folks. Up here, because it is such a small community, because we interact with folks, we have to interact with folks who we disagree with. And I think that's healthy. I think that's the way it should be. I think we need to make sure that we stop othering each other, that we in fact recognize that, just like Cindy was saying, everyone wants to have the same goals, right? Well, pretty much. We all want to have our kids have great education. We all want to have a roof over our heads. We all want to be healthy. It's just that the balance of what those various goals are is very different for some people. And when we interact with them regularly and we can reopen that level of communication, I think that's the first step, right? And we can do that here, and I think we can be a blueprint for the rest of the country to be able to do that. And that's one of the things I love about small town North Country, New Hampshire. So anyway, enough said. Come and grab me and ask me questions.
All right, so I've been doing this a little bit longer than Rusty has because this is how you can tell, because he ended his speech without telling you that he can't do this unless you support him.
That's true.
And you're all going to hear more from him about that, but that is just the reality. It takes a lot of money to get the message out. To do a mailing, it takes thousands of dollars. I don't know how much for a Senate district, but when I was doing executive council, it's about $30,000 per mailing. You've got to do about 6 or 7 of them. It's a lot of money to run one of these races. And if we want him, and we want people all around this district to know who he is, they're going to have to see it in their mailboxes and in their digital ads. And so I just urge you all to support Rusty. And I will also say that if you haven't donated to my campaign, you know, we are going. Kelly Ayotte raised $2.7 million on her first filing. Right. And I don't think that's even close to the amount of money it's going to take to convince the women of our state that she should be the one making their reproductive health care decisions for them. But we're going to have to get the word out about her. So I urge you to contribute and be as generous as you can be. The individual limit is $15,000, so don't give me any more than that. But I appreciate all of you for being here tonight and for all of your support. Thank you.
Thank you.